Okay, unedited video time. Alan, the Static Traveler, talked about the book 1001 Albums You Must Own Before You Die, or You Must Hear Before You Die. And yeah, those books are a dime a dozen, and it's full of all the obvious records. And he talked about and showed all the different basic records you'd see going back 20 something years, and his challenge to the VC, which I will do right now in a quick form, is to present 5 other records that you must hear before you die. And for me, these are records that are really stylistic shifts, sort of stakes in the ground. They're certainly some of my favorite records I own. Are they the best records I own? I don't know, but these are really important. I feel like they might be genre defining. I feel like they might be just really change your perspective. I think that's the metric I'm getting from this challenge, if that's even part of it. But for me, that's how I'm interpreting it. And Alan showed 5 cool records. That Woods Band record I'm actually looking for. So I'm going to show 5. And these are the first 5 that came to mind. I might have come with a different 5 on a different day. But these 5, you must hear these before you die, because they're just, really unique and amazing. We'll start, and I've tried to pick like 5 different genre or different sort of areas. The second album by the Wipers, Youth of America, from 1981. This is the Park Avenue label from the Pacific Northwest. This band was out of Portland, Oregon. Greg Sage was involved in this band from a really young age. And this is their second album. Everyone loves the first album, as I do, but this one, to me, has got what I find that I'm looking for in records that are particularly important to me is a sense of desperation, a sense of you had to make this. It was like a life or death situation. I get that out of this record. The arrangements and what they're going for is just top rate, and you really feel it. You know, it's punk record, but it's really something else. There's something else about this, and you know why this is obviously a big influence on Nirvana. The song "Youth of America," the title track, really stretches their limits and almost brings in an experimentation and a long-winded sort of like cosmic sort of idea to it. But just the trio: Greg Sage, Brad Davidson, Dave Kupel. This is an amazing record, and you should hear it if you don't know. This is a pretty, it's certainly pretty well known, so most of you would have known this or heard it. And it's one that came to mind for me. This is an important record. It's just what it did with punk to me. Number 2, we're going to Jamaica. Record I've talked about before. Grounation, Count Ossie and the Mystic Travelers, or the Mystic Revelation of Rastafari. Count Ossie was a real spiritual guy, real spiritual Rastafarian, and you know, this music is spiritual, basically spiritual jazz in a way. It's not traditional reggae, although it obviously has elements of that. Lots of horns, but percussion, and the Nyabingi percussion that was very specific to Jamaica is big here. This is a triple album, and this is actually the English pressing. It's actually an English second pressing with the original booklet and everything. The Jamaican pressing has a different cover, but I love this cover. This is the English pressing cover, Grounation. It's from 1975, and it's a spiritual record. Now, these guys were Rastafarian, like kind of almost militant, not necessarily accepting people, but what they were into was their own sense of spirituality. And this is almost like going to church right here, like a sermon, a 3 LP long sermon. So I have the English pressing on these Vulcan labels. There's an earlier pressing with a different label, but this is from around the original year. So it's a triple album, and there's a few amazing tracks on this. The song "Way Back Home," which is a well-known sort of, I believe, New Orleans-based tune, with just some amazing drumming and amazing horn parts. And the other one's a great too, Tales of Mozambique. But this is the one I say you hear before you die. All 3 LPs. This is like I said, going to church. The third record, and I still have 2 versions of this. Yes, This Heat. This is the original on piano, David Cunningham's label. Not in the nicest shape, but good. plays pretty well. So it's an insert now. But recorded in 1976 and over the next following year into like 78 and released in 79. This is so far ahead of its time. I can't imagine what people were thinking, but Charles Bullen, Charles Hayward, and Gareth, what's his name? Gareth Williams, who did that other project I'm just slipping my mind on right now, on Cherry Red. But, I mean, from the opening track of 24 track loop, the way that comes in with those drums. I mean, there was such a real focus on recording the drums in a very specific way. And there's obviously an avant-garde aspect to this. It came from like two punks, but they were just trying to make some collage of sound. A lot of cheap instrumentation, cheap instruments. And this thing still sounds fresh today. UK, this is the UK original. I still have the Light in the Attic or Modern Classics version. This is the first like official reissue, I believe. I kept this because it's got a lot of great notes to it. If you don't have, and Deceit, the second album is great, but if you don't know this album, I highly recommend you getting that repress or whatever. A jazz record. This is incredible. The Elements, Joe Henderson, Alice Coltrane. This is a European repress, but it's early, I believe. On Milestone. It's on these Milestone labels. You have Joe Henderson working with Alice Coltrane. You know that's going to be good. But there's a deep and heavy sort of aspect to this. I don't say heavy, but dub almost to a feel. Like the final track, Earth, is just beautiful. And you also have Michael White on this. Charlie Hayden's bass is incredible. Kenneth Nash doing all of the different various percussion. And of course, Miss Alice on tempura, harmonium, piano, and harp. And it's just such a deep record, such a spiritual listen. Just this has obviously been. I know I first heard this through Fortet, using it in one of his Late Night Tales series, and you could see how influential this would be on people. This is originally from '74 as well, so. You all know this one. If you don't, you should hear it before you kick this mortal coil. And the last record, something a little different, but one that you will know out there, I think. Roberto Musci, Loud Music. This is from the early 80s, 1984. And this shows Musci was an Italian experimentalist working with music concrete, ambient tape loops, and merging it with African sound and ethnographic music. And it's just such a wonderful combination. There's so many cool and minimalism is a big part of this, tracks and ideas. And it's just one of those records that's sort of very immersive when you really want to listen to the entire thing when you hear it. This is on the Raw Material. This is Italian. Musci has a bunch of other really cool records. I've talked about them with others. Others have talked about them as well. Just super wonderful and really, touching. Actually, it's really emotional. Actually, I find, and I still have the expanded edition that has more music on it. It's a double album. This is additional music, so I've kept that. It's on the Suave label, so I don't know if this is still available. I first heard about him from the Tower of Meaning compilation on Music from Memory, which I just sort of checked out on a whim and fell in love with it, and I still have that compilation too, and a couple other records by Roberto Musci. So those are the 5 records, other records, I think you should hear before you die. Thank you, Alan. I'll link to his video below, and hope everyone's well.